Good evening, everyone. We are here with another video in the Moon Madness series. We are talking about moon number 3 in our list of moons here in the solar system, which is pretty cool. The moon we're talking about today is none other than Callisto. Callisto is a pretty sweet moon. I wanted to discuss it here instead of talking about more moons of Saturn. We had already discussed here on the Baby Sagan channel. We had already discussed moons of Saturn, Rhea, and Dione. Tonight I'm going to be talking about Callisto, which is probably the coolest name in the entire solar system. I would say so. I think it's my favorite name. Callisto is just an awesome name. Okay, so we're talking Callisto. Now, you may, for fans of Perfect Dark out there, you remember the N64 Perfect Dark. There was a weapon called the Callisto NTG. Well, it's not that. This is actually a moon of Jupiter, and it's a big boy, or big girl in this case, actually. But it is a big moon. It is, in fact, here's some quick fun facts of Callisto. It is the third largest moon in the solar system. So Callisto here with the sweet name is the third largest moon in the solar system. Bet you didn't know that. Well, now you know it. It is number 3. It is quite a big boy, or big girl, as I said in this case, because it gets its name. So it's a very large moon. It gets its name from mythology, of course. So its myth name. It's like all the Jovian moons, it's actually named after a nymph, which is basically named after a nymph in Greek mythology in this case. Greek mythos, how about that? In Greek mythology, even though Jupiter, the planet it orbits, is actually from Roman mythology, but I looked it up. Myths aren't my forte, but I like looking it up and dabbling in it once in a while. And I looked up some information, and Jupiter is actually the equivalent of Zeus in the Roman myths. So there's the Greek, which is Zeus. There's Jupiter, which is the Roman equivalent. Basically, he's Zeus part 2, 2.0. But anyway, this nymph here, Callisto, is actually from Greek mythology, so they kind of just like combine the two sort of in this case. But yeah, it's a nymph in Greek mythology, which is a goddess. And in the case of the myth, Callisto was actually a follower of follower of Artemis. Fans of Hades out there may know Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. So kind of cool. So there's Callisto for you. Some little brief information. I got some more quick facts for us here. So who discovered our girl Callisto here, our quite large moon? Well, the discoverer, as I like to call it, is our boy Galileo. In, of course, 1610, looking at his mega jumbo, not so mega telescope, his tiny scope, as they say, but nonetheless, you know, pretty good magnification. He was able to spot Callisto for the first time. And I just discovered that there was actually somebody else that also co-discovered the 4 Galilean moons, which Callisto here is one of the, it's known as a Galilean moon, which unfortunately for our other astronomer, he's left out in the cold. Our poor boy here, unknown to history for the most part, except for Baby Sagan here. But this guy's name, I didn't know this, but I wanted to share this knowledge with you guys. His name was Simon Marius. So he discovered Galileo. Also, a Simon Marius, Mr. Marius, unbeknownst to many, unknown to even his own family. I don't know about that. Mr. Simon Marius, an astronomer that also in 1610 discovered these moons. Now there was some charges of plagiarism and all this other stuff, and like It sounds like he was like a petty kind of dude. So he was like, oh no, I discovered it or whatever. And maybe there was a charge of plagiarism for another text that Galileo had written that Marius may have been involved and tried to steal some stuff off of Galileo, who was way cooler. But we'll give him some credit here. It looks like historians of science have looked into it and that he did probably make some observations of these moons as well around the same time. And so we're giving him his due credits over 400 years later. So thank you to the Mr. Simon Marius as well. Not as cool as Galileo, but get some credit nonetheless. And also I discovered that he's actually the one, I think one of the reasons astronomers and historians of science really want to give him his due credit, he's actually the one that hinted to Kepler, I guess, to name the moons after lovers of Jupiter. In this case, name them Callisto, Io, Europa, Ganymede. So kind of cool. Yeah, so that's our boy Simon Marius. Those are co-discoverers of the beautiful Callisto, third largest moon in our system. One additional note with the myth here, it's named after a nymph, but also a lover of Zeus, or Jupiter in this case. I'm gonna put Zeus / Jupiter, our boys here. Okay, so moving a little on here. So the orbits of Callisto, our beautiful Callisto moon here. I'm gonna put down here the orbit of all the Galilean. Now we're focused here mostly on the Galilean moons. I don't know the information on the total other moons of Jupiter. Jupiter, like Saturn, has like tons and tons of moons, lots of minor moons, which I'll probably discuss on the channel here. I'll probably discuss a few minor moons, but I mostly really want to dig into the major moons for the most part. But the orbit here, it's actually the fourth of the Galilean moons. Poor Mr. Marius here. Fourth of the Galilean moons. So it orbits the furthest out of those four big boy moons, or big girl moons in this case. So it's actually the furthest out. If you actually look at an image, it's actually kind of cool. You can wiki this or just look up some other NASA graphs and stuff, but you can actually see that Callisto is actually pretty far out from the other Galilean moons. So it's actually a good distance away. And actually I have some data here for you guys. It actually orbits, Callisto here orbits over a million miles. I'm put greater than a million miles away from Jupiter, her lover. So far away. So close, yet so far away. So yeah, over a million miles away, which is pretty far for a moon, especially a major moon. But that's kind of cool, so it's kind of far away. But it does take 1 month on our Callisto here is about 17 days or so. A little less, but 17 days-ish. So even though it's mega distance away, it actually orbits in about 17 days for a full month, which is actually very, very fast, which is kind of cool. Again, it's like a slingshot effect with the gravitational, the huge mega gangbusters gravity of Jupiter really yanks around the moons, and Callisto is no exception. Even though it is quite far away, it really feels the pull of Jupiter quite a bit, and so it orbits pretty quickly at 17 days, much faster than our moon, which is much closer by proximity. So there's some quick information about Callisto, and we're going to dig into some more crispy details here. So